You can say anything to me, and I guarantee you, I will not flinch.
As a licensed professional counselor, Joy Parrish has heard everything. I mean, everything.
People have told me everything under the sun, and they expect me to go, oh, I can't believe you. Like, we have no judgment. Your job is not to judge. Your job is to sit there and take it in and to help this person process.
Regardless of what stories are shared with her, there's a simple truth behind it all.
It's just hard to be a human.
I'm Doug Fraser, and this is What We Do, a documentary series where we'll meet the people behind the most intriguing passions, hobbies, and jobs around the world. Being a counselor, it's Joy's job to help her patients unweave the complex web of emotions that make up the human condition. Guilt, amazement, anger, shame, happiness, grief. Even in those of us who consider ourselves uncomplicated, there's still a hell of a lot to unpack, especially when it comes to negative feelings.
We're not really good at tolerating negative feelings. It's okay to feel like crap. That's a part of the human experience. So I think we need to be better about inviting that into our world. It's okay to just sit in your sadness for a while and kind of get to know it a little bit better, because the more we push against something, the bigger it gets until we really, really face it.
What role do you think trauma has in people's lives? And do you think it's necessary to become a better version of themselves?
That's the number one question I ask when I am meeting with a patient. What trauma do you have in your background? And I'll tell you what, almost everyone bypasses trauma, meaning they don't think what happened to them is really that big of a deal. So they're like, yeah, well, that happened when I was a kid, but it was it kind of hurt me. And I'm like, okay, let's talk more about that. Because anyone who's listening, if you think back in the moments of your life and the moments that are clear as day for you, whether it be painful or joyful or whatever emotion was like super, super intense, those are the moments that shaped you. And most of the time, it's stuff that's really bad. And it hurts my heart because everyone has gone through something really devastating. We really can't escape life without trauma. Some people, unfortunately, deal with it on larger scales than others. But no matter the trauma, there's no competition in trauma.
Trauma doesn't have to be something huge, something reported to the police, or a death in the family.
Whatever was painful and hurtful that still comes up in your mind like clear as day, and you think about it and you're like, oh, that really hurts. That is traumatic, and that does shape us, and that does play a part in who we are.
Trauma can create shame, which dampens our ability to connect with others. Joy's a big fan of Brené Brown, a University of Houston research professor. She talks about the relationship between shame and connection in one of her TED Talks.
Shame is really easily understood as the fear of disconnection. Is there something about me that if other people know it or see it, that I won't be worthy of connection? We all know that feeling. I'm not blank enough. I'm not thin enough, rich enough, beautiful enough, smart enough, promoted enough. The thing that underpinned this was excruciating vulnerability. This idea of, in order for connection to happen, we have to allow ourselves to be seen, really seen.
So vulnerability is like, it's it. Vulnerability doesn't mean just like throw all your stuff out there. Vulnerability means to share with people who deserve to hear the story.
Nowadays, Joy helps others on their path to better understanding themselves. But she had to go through her own journey of self-discovery before she was able to help others with theirs. Part of that was learning to embrace her own sadness and understanding the importance of giving up control. Luckily, she had plenty of mentors along the way. In school, Joy was a high achiever and a self-proclaimed nervous Nelly. One day, her high school biology teacher saw her being upset over a subpar grade. He passed along a nugget of wisdom that stuck with her ever since.
He gave me the serenity prayer, and it wasn't in like a religious type of moment. He just said, And I know this has so much to do with recovery. A lot of people in 12-step use this, but it's perfect for everyone. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I will never forget that, because I just remember being like, whoa, you mean there's things I can't change? Like, I just couldn't grasp that. And just to accept that was really life-changing for me. And I think that that has been a huge foundation for how I live my life. I think it should never be underestimated. It's the power of giving someone attention, encouragement, and hope as a child. I feel so lucky that I was young and stupid, and I say that with love. I think that's just the nature of becoming. That's the nature of growing and learning.
It's been said that self-understanding is the key to happiness. Through recognizing our own faults, we build empathy. And in doing so, we learn two meaningful life skills: the power to forgive others and the strength to forgive ourselves. With a name like Joy, there's a certain expectation she has to live up to.
Everyone thinks like, oh, Joy's going to be like the happy-go-lucky person all the time. I want to be around her. And especially because I always looked up to the females around me that I felt like I needed to be that person. And I put pressure on myself to be that person. I almost feel like I woke up in my 30s and said, if I don't feel like doing that, that is okay. And that I can contribute in other ways in my life.
So when you woke up, as you said, is that the line between youth and adulthood?
My first reaction when you said that was, I don't think we ever grow up. But in a way, I stopped thinking that I was ever going to arrive. I remember I, in my head, had this benchmark of, well, when I'm 22, I'll get there, wherever there was. And I know a lot of us as humans deal with the thought of, once I have this, I will be happy. We all do that. We all do that. Even though we know better, we still do it. When I turned 30, I stopped doing the benchmark thing. I stopped doing that. If when I get here, I will be this. That's when I felt like I could stop putting that pressure on myself to reach some sort of expectation that then I would be whole.
So did you get rid of the expectations, or did you just shift expectations?
I think I shifted the expectations. So I think it's really healthy for us to have expectations on ourselves. But it was important to just not go, oh, I have to be like this person, or I have to fit this mold. And that was really an important part of my life.
We all experience the pressure to fit into certain molds now more than ever before. Some estimates say we'll spend an average of 5 years and 4 months on social media in our lifetime. That's over 4 times more than we'll spend actually socializing with others.
What impact do you think social media has on self-identity?
Oh, it's a monster. I think originally when it came out, it was like this toddler that no one could control, right? And it just ran amok, and it ran all over us, and it barfed on us, and it just like pooped all over the place. And now I think the pendulum has swung, and I'm just speaking from a white female's perspective. So this is my lens. So the pendulum, in my view, started where it swung so far to where everyone thought that the highlight reel was reality. So everyone's life is perfect and you're only posting the good things about your life. And I saw a lot of articles and research done around how social media was contributing to people's depression. And I completely agree with that, because then you're constantly comparing yourself as a human. It is our human nature to compare ourselves. And so social media forces that on us every minute of every day. Comparison. So the fact that we're constantly engaged in a comparison cycle was just devastating to our egos, and our confidence, I think. And so luckily we're smart as humans. I think we're really smart and we're really adaptable. And so I think what happened was the pendulum started swinging the other way. And by that, I mean, we started to get smart and go, wait a minute, not everyone's life is perfect. And I think we got smart, and the toddler grew up a little bit. It's not perfect, and especially women, I think we're more susceptible to comparing ourselves to strangers on the internet. No matter how much we try to avoid that, it still gets in our brains. I think we're getting better and smarter. I worry a little bit about teenagers because that's just a whole nother story. But as far as women and confidence in women, I think we're getting better. I just think it's our responsibility to post things that are uplifting, that are not related to aesthetic and how you look and what you eat and how much you eat. I just think we have better things to talk about.
Joy incorporates some of these better things into Girls Gone WOD, the podcast she co-hosts with her friend Claire.
And the best way to describe our podcast is if you were sitting next to a table of girlfriends and you were just listening to their conversation and they were talking about their lives and they were hashing out their crap. You're listening to Girls Gone WOD. This is Joy.
And this is Claire.
Would you rather be handcuffed to your spouse for a year or 1 year of no physical contact?
This is from David.
No physical contact. If I was handcuffed to Brandon for a year, one of us would not survive the year.
Well, I was going to say I would murder the person
Right.
and just pull the handcuff off of them. So it would probably be
Yeah.
1 year of no contact.
You went there.
for
I was alluding
sure.
to that.
The funny thing about Joy and I is that we were not friends before we started the podcast. We barely knew each other. And to this day, we joke about, like, why did Joy even have my number? Because she texted me one day out of the blue and was like, hey, do you listen to podcasts? And I was like, no. Why? And she was like, because we should start one.
What began as a podcast about CrossFit has morphed into a weekly show about Joy and Claire's stories of their lives. And their fans have stuck with them through the changes, perhaps being even more interested because the show's grown into so much more.
We both have gone through so much that I think people have just gotten to know us over the years, and now it has less to do with what our podcast is necessarily about in a given week and more just to do with like following our stories, and people now feel that connection to us.
Part of that connection comes from the willingness Joy and Claire have to be vulnerable on their show, sharing personal hopes and struggles.
I went through some mental health challenges after my first son was born. I went through some pretty severe postpartum depression, and speaking out about that, so many people just every single time I speak out about it are like, I've never heard someone talk about it before. And you just realize, like, man, this is mental health issues and challenges and, diagnoses are things that every single person who's listening to this, whether it's them or someone very close to them, I can guarantee you that you personally know someone who has struggled with mental health, whether you know it or not. There's just like this feeling of shame around it. Like if you have a mental health issue, then it's something that you did or didn't do. It's not normalized enough for people to realize, like, hey, chances are at some point in my life, I'm going to go through this. If I don't go through it, someone I'm very close to is going to. And it's okay to talk about it. It's important to talk about it and normalize those things. And then it's very, very important to normalize getting help.
Creativity plays a major role in Joy's life, and she's able to combine that with her passion for mental health on the podcast. But having a creative drive is give and take. On one hand, you have self-expression and the ability to better understand yourself and the world around you through your art. On the other hand, the itch to create can leave you forever wanting more.
I just kind of came to this realization where I was like talking to that itch, and I was like, hey, dude, we've just got to coexist. Like, I just have to be at peace with the fact that I'm never going to be satisfied. This piece of me that I always got so annoyed that I was like, why am I always searching? Why am I always seeking for like the next thing? It's like, oh, because that's a part of who you are. And that's what makes you create things. And so don't push that away.
Whether behind the microphone or on her counselor's chair, Joy is a listener and a teacher. She's able to guide people on a journey through their minds and allow them the chance to discover who they really are. Because no matter how much we think we know, there's always more to uncover. It's a matter of taking the time to share our stories with the people who deserve to hear them, including professional counselors like Joy. In those times of vulnerability, we'll discover a deeper level of connection and realize we don't have to be ashamed of being ourselves.
What a gift it is that people come into my office and sit in this chair and I get to hear their stories. over, I want to say, the past 15, 20 years, it's become more socially acceptable to ask for help. And that is a beautiful thing.
Hey guys, it's Doug. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Would you mind doing me a quick favor and leaving a rating and review? It's a huge help to boost the show higher up on the charts. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss all the intriguing episodes coming up. Some of those include the expedition to find a $17 billion sunken treasure ship, the story of the polygamous daughter whose father was also a murderer, CrossFit Games athlete Scott Panchik, the voice behind your favorite Hollywood movie trailers, Glenn Steinbaum, and so many others. If you'd like to watch a video version of this series with completely different stories, head on over to facebook.com/whatwedodocs. Until next time, stay curious.
What We Do with Doug Frazier is distributed by WHRV for WHRO Public Media.